Good morning and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is notable black American women, and we're fortunate to have with us the author of the book, Notable American Black Women, Dr. Jessie C. Smith, a librarian at Fisk University. And Dr. Smith, let me welcome you to the show this morning.
Thank you, Dr. Haney.
Dr. Smith, we'd like to talk about the massive book that you have, Notable Black American Women. But before we do that, let's talk about you. Let's talk about some information relative to your background and your education and how you became the librarian at Fisk University.
All right, I am a native of Greensboro, North Carolina. I did my undergraduate work there at North Carolina A&T State University, a black college, I may add, and one that I'm quite proud of. My major at that time was home economics. I began my graduate studies in textiles and clothing at Cornell University, then mixed that with marriage and delayed my education for a while, my graduate education for a while. Moved to Nashville, and later on I studied at Michigan State University, where I was continuing the graduate study I had started earlier, and took a degree in child development. Meanwhile, I had become interested in the library because I had worked at Fisk University. From there, at that point then, I studied at Peabody, old Peabody, the library school at Peabody College here in Nashville, and took another degree in library science. Then I moved to Tennessee State University, where I was in catalog and head of the department for about 2 years, and decided to pursue a doctorate in library science. So I studied at the University of Illinois in Urbana, where I received my degree, my doctorate in library science, and went back to Tennessee State because I was under an obligation, having studied under a grant from the state. And after 2 years, I moved to Fisk, where I became head of the library and professor. And this happened when Arnold Bontemps retired. So I've been at Fisk since 1965.
Very good. And so you're very, very active in terms of your library work and in terms of the book that you edited. Now, I think that we've heard all kinds of very, very positive comments about this book, Notable Black American Women. And perhaps we could sort of show that book now, Dr. Smith. I think somebody said that it's a heavy book. I think it must weigh about 30 pounds.
It feels like it, I'm not sure.
But it's a very, very important book, and I think that over the last several weeks, you've got a number of national notifications in reference to it, and I understand that quite a number of newspapers have picked up stories from it and whatnot, and it's a very, very important book. Let's talk about that book. Let's talk about the book from perhaps its conception to the publication. Now, where did you get such an idea of, to develop the book that you've got there?
I had been interested in biographical work on black women for some time, starting in, I think, the very early 70s. However, I had done more research on minority women in general than on black women. I had planned to publish a shorter biographical work on minority women, including about 6 groups in there, and actually I completed that manuscript and sent it to another publisher, but it was never published. Then in about 1986, I talked with Gale Research, the publisher of this volume, and I told them what had happened to the other work and that I still had this interest. I wanted to pursue that, although I had been under contract and couldn't break that contract, but we were just talking. And Gale was interested in doing a book on black women, so that of course meant that I could leave the other project and concentrate on this one. I had already collected a number of names and had already begun folders of biographical information on black women, so when I actually started working on this, I had something to build on.
So let me interrupt you here. Now, you've got approximately 500 entries in this volume. I know you'll probably explain this, but how is it that you made a selection? How did you make your selection in terms of selecting the persons involved in that book?
The publisher wanted 500. They said approximately 500, and I decided, well, let's just make it even, 500. I built a list of over 1,000 names, identified the women. I gave birth and death dates if I knew those dates at that point, but certainly identified the women. Then I selected an advisory committee of about 10 women, prominent women from around the country. I sent the list to them. I sent the list to other scholars around the country. and I asked them to react to the list, to add names if I had omitted any, to delete names, and they deleted one or two people who appeared in the black literature, but they were not black. So, and so from that we were able to screen the list. Then we decided to try to bring some balance, some geographical balance, some balance by area of contribution. Although, as it turns out, we more heavily weighted in some areas than others, but we were looking for that kind of balance. And sometimes there were several women whose contribution had been about similar, and the decision was somewhat arbitrary. You just select one from this area and one from another, and maybe select a different time period. And by doing that, we may have omitted someone whose importance was equal to the women who are in here.
And so you selected your list of 500 names, and then what was the process from there? I mean, what did you do beyond that?
All right, while we were selecting the 500 names, I asked the advisory council and the other people who were reacting to the list to suggest writers, because I originally thought I would write all of these essays, but was an impossible task. So I asked especially the advisory council, to recommend writers, someone who was interested in a particular woman or a particular area, civil rights or something of that nature, or someone who was teaching in this area, and they did. I also knew people who were working in those areas or who had an interest in those areas. When I contacted them, I asked them to recommend other people. So the list grew from there. I mean, the list of writers, potential writers, grew from there. Sometimes we had difficulty finding someone to write on a particular woman, and sometimes, as I did the research, I became so interested in women, I decided, well, I'll keep this one and write it myself. But we were almost always able to find someone to write.
And so you've got approximately 500